Hi, my name is Bill Harper and welcome to the Customer Success channel on YouTube. What we'll be doing today is going through the setup of infrastructure monitoring for Kubernetes. And to do so, here's a couple requirements we have. You need to have an AppDynamics controller, obviously. You need to have a Kubernetes cluster. The Kubernetes metrics server needs to be deployed, but we'll walk through that in the installation process. You need to have sufficient licenses for AppDynamics. The cluster agent consumes one server visibility license, and if you use InfraViz for each worker node you have, it'll also conserve a license. Need access to get the images from Docker Hub or Red Hat Container Registry, or if you want to manage them locally. A couple more things to think about. Installing, we can use kubectl, which is what I'm going to use in this demonstration. You can use Helm charts, and you got to think a little bit about some pre-planning. Are you going to use our images? Are you going to build your own? Are you going to use kubectl or a Helm chart to deploy the cluster agent, the operator, and InfraViz? Credentials for the controller in hand, so you need to basically have the access key so that the agent can talk to that AppDynamics controller. You need the correct privileges in AppDynamics and in Kubernetes. Here's the steps that we're going to go through for the deployment process. First, we're going to install the metrics server. That's a Kubernetes component. Next, we're going to install the AppDynamics cluster agent operator. And what this does is it defines custom resource definitions in the cluster that the cluster agent and the InfraViz agent will use. We'll next create a secret. This is going to be the access key into the controller for credentials and for the agent to be able to send data into the AppDynamics controller. We're then going to install the cluster agent. This will we'll have to do some editing with the cluster agent YAML files for our specific controller and environment. We'll then install the InfraViz agent, and we'll need to do some editing there as well, same as the cluster agent for our controller endpoint URL and our access key. And that's it for the process. We're going to next jump in and walk through this on the command line, and at the end we'll show you it in the controller as it builds up and installs. As a very initial step, and I didn't have this in the flowchart that I showed earlier, we're going to head on over to the AppDynamics account portal, and we're going to download the cluster agent zip file, which contains the Helm charts and YAML files for the deployment of the cluster agent, cluster operator, and InfraViz. We're going to do that through the curl command. We're going to go on over to a terminal shell window, and we're going to go ahead and download that agent package file, zip file. Okay, it looks like our download has completed, and let's take a look. We should have a zip file there. Let's go ahead and unzip it, and we'll show you what the contents of the zip file is. It's going to actually create a directory underneath where you were downloaded the zip file to, called cluster agent Alpine AMD 64 bundle distribution. And if we take a look in there, let's clear the screen and make it look clean. Take a look in there, we can see we have YAML files. These YAML files are for deploying the agent and the operator and the InfraViz, as well as there's Helm charts, a Helm chart directory to do exactly the same. So let's go ahead and clear the screen out, and we're going to move to the next step. So let's go ahead and get started with the installation. The very first step, as I showed in the flowchart, is going to be to install the Kubernetes metrics server, which we leverage to bring metrics into our agent and then into the AppDynamics controller. So we've gone ahead and installed that. The very next step we're going to do is we're going to create a namespace for all the AppDynamics components, the cluster operator, the cluster agent, and the cluster InfraViz agent. And I've got a cheat sheet on the side here where I've copied and pasted all the commands I need to go through some of these steps. The very next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install the cluster operator. We don't need to do any editing to these first few steps here. The final few steps we will have to edit things in specific to our controller. So we're going to go ahead and install the cluster agent operator, and you can see here that it's added some stuff to the Kubernetes cluster that we're going to be leveraging with the other components of how we monitor Kubernetes clusters. I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen out. Okay, the next step is actually installing the cluster agent, the AppDynamics Kubernetes cluster agent. But before we do that, the cluster agent needs to communicate with the AppDynamics controller, so it's going to need the access key, the agent access key. So we need to go ahead and create a secret in Kubernetes. We're going to use this command here, and you're going to put your key in, as you see right here. I'm not going to put mine in on the screen here during the demo, but you would put your key in here to go ahead and create the secret. Okay, moving on to step number 4, installing the Kubernetes cluster agent for AppDynamics. I've gone ahead and created that secret off screen with my key, and I just want to check it really quick. Should show up as opaque, and there it is. Let's take a look at the cluster agent file. So if I list all the files out again, we're going to be using cluster agent YAML. And this is the generic version of it. And I'll just walk you through this a little bit. So this needs to be edited. The app name here, this is going to be the name of the cluster in AppDynamics. So the name that shows up, you need to pick it right here and put it into the YAML file. This is your controller endpoint. This is going to be typically 443 for you guys. The account name, this is your unique AppDynamics account name. And then next is the cluster agent Docker image, which you can actually insert in here, Docker IO, which I will do really quick. This is your registry. And this is all in our documentation. That stays the same. That's the service account that was actually set up by the cluster operator. And then these last lines here, you may or may not need depending on your deployment option. One other thing that I am going to put in here is what namespaces I want the agent to monitor by default. So we'll go ahead and do that. And fix the little spaces here. And what you can see here is the namespaces I want the cluster agent to monitor is the Kube system, AppDynamics, the default, and one called Pet Clinic. So that's it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and edit my file offline, and we'll go ahead and deploy the cluster agent and then go validate that the cluster agent got installed correctly. So our next steps for is to go ahead and deploy the AppDynamics cluster agent using the cluster agent YAML file. I've gone ahead and edited my YAML file offline, so it should be ready and set to go. But before we do that, I wanted to check to make sure that we had the Kubernetes metric server and the AppDynamics operator installed correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and take a quick look. Pods by namespace. And we should see the operator show up. We do. Let's go ahead and check the kube system namespace or the metric server. And we can definitely see the metric server shown up. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy the the cluster agent for AppDynamics. And then what we'll do is we will check to make sure it got deployed. And then we'll let it sit for about 5 to 8 minutes and gather some data within AppDynamics, and we'll go around and into the AppDynamics user interface, and we'll make sure that it's installed properly. We'll check to make sure it's installed, and then we'll make sure that it's starting to gather data. Now that we've deployed the cluster agent, and we've waited about 5 to 8 minutes, we want to go validate that the installation worked, and we can actually see the cluster agent reporting in Kubernetes data into our AppDynamics dashboard. We're going to do this in 2 ways. We're going to first go check to make sure that we can see the agent under the agent management framework. So I'm going to go under agent management, and this is where our smart agent lives, but this is the cluster agent that we're looking at. We can see the status is okay, which means it's up. There's some minor things that you can do here on the fly. add namespaces and things like that, but we won't get into all that right here. Let's go over to validate it from more the cluster agent standpoint, where it's reporting in the Kubernetes data under servers and then under clusters. And if we double click into the cluster, we can actually see that it's reporting in data. We can see that there's no errors as the cluster agent has come up. There's 13 pods out there that it's monitoring by namespace. You can see some of the other information in the dashboard in terms of pods, image issues, storage issues, CPU utilization, and that sort of stuff. We can also see a list of pods here that's being monitored. I set it up to monitor the Kube system namespace, the AppDynamics namespace, and a few others. So we can see all the pods that are being monitored by the agent in the Kubernetes cluster. Look at the inventory. Again, these are the namespaces that we have specified that we're monitoring with the agent. This is a value in the YAML file. I think I spoke about that earlier. You can see again 13 pods, the types of pods that are out there, the types of objects, deployments, daemon sets that we have out there. And then under events, these would be any Kubernetes events that have occurred. Looks like this install was pretty clean. We don't have any events yet, but as soon as we start putting workloads in there, we'll probably see some informational events, warning events, and maybe even some error events appear, depending on the application and what the user is doing. And that's it. So we're going to go next and go back and install the InfraViz agents, and we'll do that from the command line. Okay, we're back to the command line to take a look at the InfraViz configuration YAML file. Let's go ahead and open that up, take a look at it, talk a little bit about it a bit. What you see here is same information that you put in the cluster agent file, the URL of your endpoint of your controller. You're probably going to be using port 443 if you're on a SaaS instance. This is going to pull the latest machine agent. Docker IO would be the registry if you're pulling it generically, and you would need to enter your account name. Enable container host ID is set to true. And what we're going to do is we're going to enable the network visibility as well. I've gone ahead and copy and pasted the commands we need to add to this file for network visibility as a demonstration, because that's where the value of this comes in, is when you have both of these going. So this is how you enable server viz true. You would put that in there, and then enable network viz, and you can see the information that's in there. You can see the the container that it's pulling down. You can see also up here that this is the machine agent for AppDynamics. This is going to be the Netviz agent that it's pulling down. And let's go off. I'm going to go off and edit this behind the scenes here, and then we'll go off and deploy it, and we'll validate that it's actually working. Now we've just jumped out of the editing mode of VI, and we're going to go ahead and deploy the InfraViz and the Netviz agent, the machine agent, and the Netviz agent, to be honest. So kubectl create -f. And again, I've gone ahead and edited this version of the file offline for my specific controller. It's going to use the same secret for the controller that the cluster agent uses to authenticate and report in. And we've got 4 hosts as part of this controller here. So it's going to actually, we'll see it start to report in on 4 of the VMs that we see in AppDynamics as part of the InfraViz reporting. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and let that warm up a little bit for about 5 to 8 minutes. And we'll go over and check in the AppDynamics controller and make sure that we see the 4 nodes that are part of the cluster that we're in, and make sure that the InfraViz agent is installed and running, and we can actually see reporting of metrics coming out of those. So it's been about 8 minutes since we installed the InfraViz agents, and what we want to do now is go check to make sure that they're reporting in under servers in AppDynamics. And we can see here at the top, these are my servers. Let's just go ahead and sort by name. Mine's the 10.0 server, so we can definitely see there are 4 of them reporting in. We've got a warning going on 2 of them, it looks like, but we can go ahead and double click in and see all the information we need to see about the particular worker node in the Kubernetes cluster. We've installed the Netviz agent. We can see that that's in there and connected. Let's go look at one of the other nodes that's in yellow. Actually, one turned green, so it probably had to do with me deploying the InfraViz agent. We had something that ran over a health rule or something. If we click right here on health, we can see here memory was too high. So that's going to probably work its way out and solve itself. But again, we've just validated that the InfraViz agent for the Kubernetes solution from AppDynamics is installed and working, and we can see all 4 nodes. And that's it for our walkthrough on installing the AppDynamics Kubernetes Agent Operator and InfraViz. I want to thank everybody for watching this today and watching the walkthrough of our solution on Kubernetes. Thank you.